You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody. Welcome to your Hot Options Report for Wednesday, August 13th. Now, if you're listening to this show, chances are that you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees, whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades. Every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Again, the Hot Options Report brought to you by Public. Full disclosures in the podcast description. All right, let's get down to business. Let's see what's lighting up the options market today. Let's kick things off in the land of VIX and Vol, as we are wont to do out there, listeners. And Vol has been taken to the woodshed. It's the only way you can describe it over the better part of this past week, as markets have rallied and Vol has come in aggressively. VIX cash going out right around a 14.5 today, so well shy of the 15 handle. Saw a lot of paper yesterday, well over 1 million contracts on the heels of that inflation number. Today, not quite as active, 642,000 contracts on the tape in VIX land. That compares to an ADV of 734. So the ADV moving up, not quite hitting it there today. And the hot option out there in VIX land, no, VIX getting taken to the woodshed. You might be forgiven for expecting some puts to dominate the tape, but nope, it was nearly 55,000 of the October 20s. So upside calls going up for average price of right around 260. So intriguing. You like those? Would you be a buyer or a seller at that level, listeners? Interesting stuff as we keep on rolling out to SPY. A SPY coming in pretty much a little bit heavier than expectations today. So interesting. Lighter day in the VIX, a little bit heavier day in SPY. We expect about exactly 8 million contracts to go up in SPY, almost 8.15 going up in SPY. So just a little bit north of its ADV today. The hot option out there in SPY, 643,000 of the 645 calls. You don't have to ask me that it's expiring today. You know that by now. You've been listening to the show for a little bit. SPY going out a wee bit south of that strike, just a tick, 644.89. So unfortunately, once again, if you paid anything for those, looks like the average price was 41 cents. Then unfortunately, not a winner chicken dinner for you if you held them, of course, till the close. Let's go out to the S. Was it a spicy day out there in the SPX? The answer was it was decent. It was fairly decent. We expect a little bit north of 3.75 million to go up in the S these days, and nearly 4 million contracts hitting the tape in the S. 3.96 million to be precise, just a tick under 4 million. So a pretty active day out there. The hot option out there in the SPX, listeners, right around 155,000 of these 6460 calls. Looks like they had an average price of around $4.30. The S going out a little bit north of that, a little bit 64, 66, 58. So interesting activity out there in the S as we keep on rolling to small caps. Another hot day out there in small caps, listeners. So interesting stuff out there where we have very different days in the Qs versus VIX versus small caps. Of course, versus SPY and SPX. So that's what we're seeing out there right now. Another day north of 2 million contracts in IWM, 2.13 million to be precise. So a very active day. The ADV continues to increase. It was 1.3 million not too long ago, then 1.35 million on our last show, 1.4 million today. And yet still exceeding that 2.13 million contracts changing hands at small caps today. The hot option, once again, going out a little bit, not quite expiring today. We're going out to September, to the September 218 puts, going up 131,000 times today for an average price of right around $2.20. 218, you got a little ways to go to get there. Small caps going out a little bit north of 231, right around 231 and a quarter today. So interesting stuff. More 1 month out and change downside dominating the tape in small caps yet again on a very active day. Was it a spicy day in the Qs? The answer is yes, but not quite as impressive as we saw in small caps, where they were doing not quite 2x, but pretty darn close to that of their ADV. The Qs, the ADV is 4 million, putting in a little north of 4.1 million out there today. So slightly exceeding expectations in the Qs. What was the hot option out there in the Qs today? About 267,000 of the 580 puts. Again, you know the deal, expiring today. The Q's going out slightly north of that, 580 and about a third. So unfortunately, you paid anything for those bad boys. And it's like the average price was around 73 cents and you held them into the close. Unfortunately, no winner chicken dinner for you out there. As we keep on rolling out into the single names, was it a hot day to sling some single name equity options? The answer was yeah, it was impressive out there. 590,000 contracts is what it cost you to break into the top 10. That's decidedly more than we've seen recently, just barely north of 400,000. So earnings and some other big headlines driving a lot of this action out here today. Number 10, my old stomping grounds, Intel. Looks like their little sojourn to DC is paying off. Closing today right around 22 and a quarter. They were a little bit north of 20 not too long ago when we were talking about them on the show. So they've had a nice little run this week, putting up nearly 600,000 contracts today, 590,000 contracts. And the hot option in Intel today, about 31,000 of the AUG doubles, the AUG 22 calls. Again, Intel going out right around 22 and a quarter. They went up for an average price of 34 cents. So they've got a little ways to go, but they're looking pretty good. They're pretty much at break even or pretty close to it right now. Listen, just another dime or so, and they'll be looking pretty good. Can they maintain that level through the end of the week, or is Intel going to fall right back to earth as it has done so many times in the past? I guess we'll find out. Stay tuned to the hot options report throughout the rest of the week, listeners. We'll see how these options go out on Friday as we keep on rolling out to American Airlines. Listeners, number 9, 589,000 contracts on the tape. American's been an interesting one. We heard a lot of back and forth about airline demand out there and all sorts of other issues. The hot option in American Airlines today, 114,000 of the AUG 14 calls. Interesting paper. Haven't seen a ton of upside paper in the airlines, like a lot of downside puts. By the way, these are expiring next week in the weeklies on August 22nd, so a little bit longer term paper here. American going out a little bit north of 13 today, 13.10. So they got a little ways to go to make that, but interesting paper nonetheless. Number 8, our old pal Robinhood. They've kind of been kicked to the curb lately in our top 10 with all these newcomers just rocketing onto the scene. But Hood back at the number 8 spot today, putting up 617,000 contracts on the tape. Hood closing a little bit north of the par strike. In fact, ways north, 108.62. So a good level for Robinhood out there. What was the hot option out there in Robinhood today? It was about 27,000 of the 110 calls. So they got a little ways to go to get there. And of course, it's like the average price is right around $2.40. So if you factor that in, they have even farther to go. Can they get there by Friday, listeners? Conversely, if you sold those, can you keep all of that? Well, we'll find out as the week continues, as we head on into the number 7 spot, listeners. Yep, it's our old pal Palantir putting up 623,000 contracts on the tape today, listeners, for the number 7 spot. What was the hot option out there in Palantir today? 38,000 of the 190 calls expiring at the end of this week. In fact, I do believe everything else on our hot options report this week is all expiring on Friday. So keeping with our theme, listeners, weeklies are where the action is, at least until they add dailies in these single names, which might not be that far down the road if you believe some of the reports. The hot option, like we said, in Palantir right now, 38,000 of the 190 calls. The stock going out right around 184 and a third. So they got a ways to go, and of course, average price of about $1.50. So they have a little bit of work to do by Friday if they want to pay those bad boys off. Number 6. Now we're going out to the wild world of quantum, listeners. If you've been listening to any of our Options Oddity shows or even some of our Odd Block shows, you've heard of this name. This is Rigetti, listeners, ticker symbol RGTI. Back in the top 10 with a vengeance, all the way at number 6, 693,000 contracts. And you know this name is popping up when it's earnings season, when something's wild is going on in the quantum space, and that's what we're seeing right now. Rigetti having another big move post earnings. The hot option out there today, 113,000 of the 18 calls. They went up for an average price of around 34 or 35 cents. Stock going out right around 17 and a quarter, so they got a little bit of a lift ahead of them. Some work to do by Friday for those bad boys to pay off. But nonetheless, hot action out there in quantum computing. Keeping it with hot quantum adjacent names, shall we say. Let's go out to CoreWeave, listeners. Number 5, ticker symbol CRWV. You know it, you love it, maybe you hate it at this point. Either way, all the way up at number 5, 735,000 contracts. They had earnings after the bell yesterday, so they're obviously feeling the flow out there today as well. Putting up, again, 743,000 contracts on the tape here for CoreWeave. And the hot option out there in CoreWeave today, it was the 120 puts going up about 24,000 times. An average price, again, the stock went out 117 and 3/4. So that explains why these puts are so juicy. They went out with an average price of nearly $5, about $4.90. So interesting stuff. In the money puts. Is that the way to go? Would you rather sell those or buy those for nearly $5, listeners? They are in the money, worth about 2 1/4 right now. So interesting. Where will CoreWeave go out? We'll keep an eye on it as we keep on rolling to the number 4 spot. It's the fruit company. Man, talk about names that have had good trips to DC lately. Apple definitely in that conversation. Coming in at number 4 today, 1.61 million contracts. Closing right around 233 and a third, so way higher than that par strike that they seemed like they were glued to for the better part of this year. All it takes, a little sojourn to DC, and man, $33 in the can. Interesting stuff. The hot option out there in Apple, 235 calls, going up 165,000 times today. Can they make that, listeners? Can they get there by Friday? By the way, average price right around $1.40, so they need to do a little bit of extra work. If you were buying these for these to pay off, obviously by Friday. If you sold them, you don't mind the stock hanging out right here or a little bit below. We'll keep an eye on the fruit company as we keep on rolling to the number 3 spot. Yes, I said number 3. Listeners, Tesla falling all the way to number 3, putting up almost 1 3/4 million contracts today. So a decently active day for them, but not enough for the number 2 spot. What was the hot option in Tesla today? 145,000 of the 350 calls, 3 halves. That's all opening paper as well. So a lot of new positioning going on the 350 strike. Tesla going out 339 and about 1/4. So it's got a ways to go to get to the 3 half strike by the end of the week. But then again, Tesla can do that in a few hours. Average price right around $3. So factor that in. You got to get to 353 to pay these bad boys off. If you sold them, you got to stay below that to make some money out there. So interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye on Tesla. Again, fall into number 3. What can usurp Tesla and claim the number 2 spot on our list, listeners? It's our old pal AMD. They are also benefiting from a trip to Washington, not by them, but by Nvidia. 1.81 million contracts on the tape for them. The hot option in AMD, 189, nearly 190,000 of the 185 calls. Those are pretty close. Right around 184 and a third is where the stock closed today. Of course, the average price right around 265. So they need to get their butts in gear if they want to pay those off by Friday. And the big dog, you know what it is by now. It's Nvidia, closing right around 181 and a half today, putting up about 2.5 million contracts. The hot option in Nvidia today, 256,000 of the 185 calls. Average price of about 82 cents. So stock needs to run about $3.50, and then another 82 cents on top of that if you want to pay those bad boys off. So needs to get into gear by Friday. Flip side, if you sold those, you don't mind hanging out here. And that's going to do it for your hot options report for Wednesday, August 13th. Hope you're all having a great trading week out there. Stay tuned to the rest of our content throughout the rest of the week, including, of course, Thursday, a double dose of the option block, and This Week in Futures Options. Friday, volatility views with our buddy Ewan Sinclair, as well as, of course, options oddities for all of our pro members. You want to learn more about that? Check out our pro content. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go. Of course, every day we come back at you as well with another episode of the Hot Options Report. So look forward to that. And of course, stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.